The Ravens showed just about everything you wanted to see out of them in week 3 of the preseason, at least as much as you could take away from week 3 of the preseason. We talk about the Ravens bullying the Commanders and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire. We're here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's show, the Ravens just absolutely dominate. They bully the Washington Commanders, just about as dominating of a performance as you can get, honestly. So we're going to be diving into everything that happened in the game. And of course, with that comes the roster decisions, cuts, guys that earned roster spots. There is so much to dive into. I want to thank everybody for making Locked On Ravens a part of your day, your first listen each and every single day, as well as thank you out there to all the everydayers. First-time listeners, if you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. Just had the Locked On Ravens watch along. We reacted to every single play live, which it was incredible. You know, a lot of fun things to react to in a game like this, but it's not just about, the wins and the losses of the preseason. We know that doesn't matter. It's about what actually goes on in terms of the final guys making the roster. The Ravens didn't really have anybody play in this game. We saw some Mike Green snaps. Cooper Rush played a decent amount, but really, it was those bubble guys. And not only bubble guys, and Trenton Simpson obviously is a starter. It's not only guys fighting for roster spots, it's guys fighting for roles. It's guys fighting for roles. And I think that is the other big part, the other factor. It's not just, this guy's right on the bubble. Is he going to make or miss the roster? Well, John Harbaugh has apparently, for a guy like Rasheen Ali, so we're recording this, apparently he's made it sound like Rasheen Ali is on the 53-man roster. He backs the roster chances of Rasheen Ali again. Also special teams units for him, not just kick returns. So feels like Rasheen Ali is going to make this roster, which is really cool. Got a bunch of other John Harbaugh updates, which are exciting in terms of Lamar Jackson. Apparently expected to be back at practice on Monday, so that's fun. But to me, I think that the big part of this game is that the depth really shined through for the Ravens in this contest. 30-3, obviously the final score, and it really didn't even feel that close, and it was a blowout. So I think that tells you everything you need to know. Now, in terms of the actual team stats, it was better than the Dallas game for the Cowboys, how that went for them, but I liked what I saw. Cooper Rush, I thought, played really well, 5 for 5, 59 yards. They really weren't asking the quarterbacks to do much. It really just felt like they were trying to get out of there quickly as they could. I mean, Devin Leary averaged 3.1 yards per pass. I mean, it was really just like a short passing game, screen stuff. Like, yeah, what wasn't really like a, hey, go chuck the ball down the field and go see what happens. They had some of those plays, but, wasn't nearly the case where everybody was trying to just get deep shot. That was not what was going on here. So I was excited because, again, in the third preseason game, and I get there's not as much excitement around it. Not all the stars are playing. In fact, not a lot of the stars are playing. But I was really excited to see guys like Rasheen Ali, who, again, John Harbaugh mentioned, is a guy that looked good. He looked explosive. He finished the game with 9 carries for 36 yards and a score. Also was involved in the receiving game a little bit as well with 5 catches. So that to me, Sandin was a guy that is definitely going to be on the roster, and that's really important. D'Ernest Johnson led the team with 17 carries. He had 45 yards and a touchdown. Also was involved in the receiving game a little bit as well. I'd probably assume he's their practice squad back at this point. 4 running backs is still a little rich for me, but that clearly seems to be the direction that the Ravens are going to go in. And, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. But when you kind of look around the roster with a bunch of the other guys that stepped up and all the roster crunches, they're going to have to make some tough decisions. Once again, I said this on the watch along. It's a good problem to have. It's a really good problem to have. So I'm excited for that. And just the cut down day. Obviously, we're going to be live here on Locked On Ravens when the Ravens do release their roster. Now, for those that don't remember, I didn't until recently. The Ravens released their roster like 4 hours after everybody else. Like last year, the roster was supposed to come out at 4. And They came out, like 8:15 that night. So we might have to wait a little bit for the roster, but the Ravens are going to have some tough decisions to make there for sure. Not a lot in the department wide receiver wise. Dayton Wade and Xavier Guillory both went down. Hopefully those guys are all okay. At the time I'm recording this, I don't have any updates on those guys. So, we're going to see. But leading receiver for Baltimore was LeJonte Wester, 2 catches for 28 yards, had a nice 22-yarder. Look, he's going to make the roster. He's going to be more of a return guy. He also had an end around, a 5-yard play. And while, 5 yards is not a lot or anything like that, it does tell you kind of the role I feel like LeJonte will have on the offense this season, assuming everybody stays healthy. It was really the defense that a lot of people are talking about here. Ruben Larry led the team with 7 tackles. He 100% is on this roster. There's not a doubt about that. Trenton Simpson, in my opinion, he absolutely locked up that starting spot next to Roquan Smith. John Harbaugh said he has taken a step, and it seems like the confidence is there for him to take on that spot. He had 6 tackles, 1.5 sacks. He had a really nice pass deflection, which led to a Lamar Davis interception. He was all over the field. And look, Trenton hasn't necessarily been like the most consistent guy over the course of his first 2 years, but he absolutely earned that spot today. And I think for me, there's not a doubt in my mind that he will be starting next to Roquan in week 1. Now, how often do they play base and actually keep 2 inside linebackers on the field? That I think is another question. Jay Higgins had 6 tackles. I think he is on the roster. Could be an interesting dilemma, though, with the inside linebacker spot if they do want to keep a guy like a Keon Martin, who had a pick 6 in this game, 5 tackles. He had a really nice tackle for loss as well. We talk about Ruben Larry, but Keon Martin has put together an incredible body of work during training camp, during the preseason. And do you keep 7 corners on the roster? It's a decent amount, and I'm not even counting like Ruben Larry, who I have as a safety. So I don't know. Like, Keon Martin has done enough to make the roster. He has done enough to make the roster. And I said it on the watch along, where it's like, imagine if Bilal Kone and Robert Longerbeam were healthy, and I wish they were, but just imagine the crunch. It's just crunch now. Imagine the crunch if those 2 guys were healthy for them. So we'll get into my predictions a little bit later in the show, but Keon Martin was electric, looked all over the field. Malik Cam, he continues to be involved. I don't think he makes the roster or anything, but I think as a practice squad player, that certainly is in the cards for him. I mentioned Lamar Davis. He was everywhere, 2 passes defensed, and obviously with the interception as well. He's a guy that, that I don't think he was in danger of not making the roster, but he certainly made an impact there. Sanusi Kane, 3 tackles on the day. Some of the not so positives, David Ojabo had a positive and a negative in this game, but the negative that I take out of it for him was he was playing late in the game, and that usually tells you a lot about guys' roster standings and roster spots. Same thing with Bo Braid. Seems like Bo Braid is nowhere close to this roster right now, which it's been a pretty crazy fall for Bo Braid. And I like Bo personally. I think that he has a lot of talent and a lot of upside, but clearly other guys have just performed better than him. So it feels like he's on the outside looking in on this roster. Still think a practice squad spot is probably in the cards for him, but you just look around and you see how Keon Martin's making things happen and Ruben Larry's making things happen. And it just feels like there's not a spot for Braid anymore on this roster. Tyler Loop, absolutely insane. 61-yard field goal with honestly room to spare. Ravens have their kicker. They obviously have a type. Randy Brown, absolutely unreal kicker development for him over the course of his career in Baltimore. You just absolutely love to see that. So at this point, you have a good problem, right? I'm going to say it over and over and over again, because I know that it's tough to factor in good players not making a roster. It's tough, but you'd rather be in that situation. You would rather be in that situation. Loop on the day, by the way, it wasn't just a 61-yarder. He went 3 for 3 on the day. He had a kick from 51 and 46. I believe those other 2 were 52. Excuse me, yards short. My apologies, Tyler Loop. 52 yards and 46 yards from Tyler Loop on the day to go alongside his 61-yarder. I love it. I love it. again, preseason game number 3 always kind of feels like that. All right, can we get to the regular season? Can we move it along here? But these are guys fighting for their careers, right? I love those stories of guys making an impact. And going in, if you missed the bonus episode this morning, we had a bonus episode for Saturday morning about Micah Parsons and the whole thing that happened yesterday on Friday and all the hoopla going on over there. And I talked a little bit about the roster, and I gave a roster prediction. And I had said that Keon Martin's one of those guys that was a pure bubble guy. If he had a great game against the Commanders, he'd probably bump up into the final 53. If he didn't, he'd probably be on the practice squad. And he made the most of his opportunity. So I'm really excited for a lot of these guys who made a lot of impacts throughout this game. And again, man, you can just see the Ravens are head and shoulders above the Commanders in terms of depth. Like, you can tell that, like, what is it with this Ravens scouting team, man? It is absolutely unbelievable with, how they're able to go out there on a yearly basis and just find these undrafted gems. CJ Ravenow had a play. And again, this isn't just about guys who filled up the box score. I thought Mike Green played really well. I thought Aeneas Peebles played really well. All right, guys who on the stat sheet are not going to blow you away. Ravenow had 1 tackle. 1. I don't even think, Peebles had 1 tackle. Mike Green had 1 tackle. But those are guys who dominated, and you watch the film, you watch the tape. We're going to go back and look at it and watch it. You're going to see those guys flash. Mike Green had an awesome chop move that he won on, which I'm really excited to see the replay of. Peebles continues to win hard. Okoye makes plays. Ravenel's out there being awesome. Chandler Martin, Higgins, these guys all are making impacts, and it leaves the Ravens with a lot of decisions to make. So coming up, the roster, it is continuing to take shape. I think we have now a pretty firm, maybe 50 guys, 49 guys that are probably going to be on this roster, maybe even a little more than that. So we're going to dive into the roster taking shape here for this Ravens team, and so much more coming up on this instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens following their Week 3 win over the Washington Commanders. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, me and Locked On Ravens are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. Now, one of my favorite features is the new guillotine leagues. They just dropped, and every week the lowest scoring team is eliminated, and the last one standing wins. Whether you're all in on something new or you like sticking to head-to-head leagues or jumping into public leagues, Yahoo's got you covered. And to celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a cool new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now is the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Moving along here on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Again, we're here for you 5 days per week on Locked On Ravens. You can find us wherever you get your podcast, video form, audio form. If you're a video watcher, you want to listen one day. If you're an audio listener, you want to watch one day. It's the same content both ways. Tell the friend, tell the family member, we have them covered for them, just like we have you covered here on Locked On Ravens. You can follow me over on social media, Oestreicher34, Twitter, Instagram. Trying to start the TikTok here. So we're everywhere giving you that daily Ravens coverage. Now, the roster, again, is starting to take shape. We're really starting to figure it out, trying to see where they are going to go with their roster. Now, I have an exercise, a game I want to play here. If you're live with us in the chat, if you're watching after the fact, or if you're watching or listening in audio form, be sure to share your opinion. I'm curious. What is the most, and I asked this on the watch along, what is the most surprising roster cut you see the Ravens making by Tuesday? Who is the most surprising player in your opinion that is going to be left off the roster? And while people are putting that in, I'm going to read my roster that I read out this morning, my initial 53-man. Now, this has changed for me a little bit, but this is what I had initially coming into the preseason game. I had Lamar Jackson and Cooper Rush being the 2 quarterbacks, 4 running backs with Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, Rasheed Ali. Fullback with Patrick Ricard, that's 1 guy. 6 wide receivers, Flowers, Bateman, Hopkins, Walker, Wallace, Wester. 3 tight ends, Andrews, Likely, and Kohler. I had 9 offensive linemen, Stanley, Voorhees, Linderbaum, Filele, Rosengarten. Then I had Bullock, Vincent, Cleveland, and Noteboom. 5 defensive linemen, Matabike, Jones, Washington, Peebles, Jenkins. 5 outside linebackers, Owe, Van Noy, Robinson, Green, and Jabo. 5 inside linebackers, Smith, Simpson, Buchanan, Hummel, Higgins. 6 corners, I had Humphrey, Wiggins, Alexander, Awuzie, Tampa, and Jalen Armour Davis. 4 safeties, I had Hamilton, Starks, Kane, and Lowry. 3 special teamers, Loop, Stout, and more. And then a new change to this season is you can now designate 2 players to return from injured reserve as your 53-man roster is set. So it used to be if you got placed on IR before the season starts or during roster cutdown, you were done for the year. Now you have 2 designated spots to do that during the cutdown. I have Emory Jones and Elisa Isaac on that. So that was my 53-man roster. And I think for me, the most surprising, I see it in the chat here. What do we got? And we got Coach in the house. Appreciate you checking in, man. If you want film breakdowns, be sure you check out Sip the Tablet Films over there. He is the man. A lot of great film breakdown and content. And actually, I want to get you on one time, Coach. If you're still here, if you haven't tuned out yet, I want to try to get you on. So I'm going to try to coordinate with you because the insight you get from Coach, it's something you want to listen to in here. So be sure you go support him over there. I see Ben Cleveland. I see Jake Hummel. Yep, that's an interesting one. I see Laura thinks Ajabo makes the cut. Cam saying Cleveland and Ajabo. Hummel here. Yeah. If I had to go with a surprise, let's go. Appreciate you, man. We'll get someone on the docket. I think Hummel's a good one. I could go like mega big brain on this, by the way, like absolutely craziness with that. I feel like it could be Hummel. Because I would say Ajabo, but he had a really good play. He's taken advantage of some of the opportunities. Wasn't a great game for him in the second week. I mean, at least not from what we saw in the first week. He had that offsides penalty that negated a really great TJ Tampa pass breakup. But I think to me, keeping 4 edge guys is pretty dicey. I think 4 inside linebackers you could live with, and honestly, I would be okay with them keeping Higgins over Hummel. Now, I know that they probably prioritize Hummel's special teams ability. That's why they brought him over. But where else are you cutting from the roster? Do you cut John Jenkins? Like, let's put Keon Martin on the roster right now. Let's do it. Let's put him on the roster. 7 corners. Where are you cutting from? I think you don't cut from the corner room. I think Jalen Armour Davis earned his opportunity. Ruben Lowry's on the roster. And, he's a kind of like a corner safety combo. If you want to hear my big brain and probably unpopular opinions on this situation, which I'm sure that people will not be pleased with this one. Maybe, I don't know. A couple of guys that I could see as like 1% guys to get cut that were on my initial 53, because we see the Ravens move on from guys they're not necessarily impressed with at times. They might say, hey, we don't need a project on the offensive line here. We need to keep Keon Martin. Is Carson Vincent a guy that obviously needs time? Right? I'm not grading Carson Vincent and saying, oh, this is who Carson Vincent is. I think he has a lot of potential. But do the Ravens feel like they need a project on the line? I think Carson Vincent makes it. I think he makes it. I'm just saying, like, what's the craziest scenario that I can think of? What's the wildest scenario? That's a wild one because I think he makes it. I think he's, I'm not going to judge Carson Vincent off of his preseason, right? There's a long way to go for him. I think the tools are there. I like Carson Vincent a lot. I think that's a guy that I say is safe on the roster. And I think he should be. I'd be honestly kind of upset if he got cut. Another guy, Sanusi Kane, maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to think of the wildest scenarios I can. I'm trying to go like a crazy amount of wild. I don't think these drafts are going to happen. Kane, I think, has value on special teams. I don't think he gets cut. I don't. I think that they value Kane over Braid. Or, well, definitely over Braid, but over Keon Martin. I think that they just cut Martin and keep Sanusi Kane. I think, to me, those two are guys that, and look, I've seen some people talk about it for those two. I think they're safe. I think that they're both safe. I think that they would cut Keon Martin before they cut Sanusi Kane. But I don't know if Sanusi Kane makes it through waivers if he's cut. I don't know if Keon Martin makes it through waivers if he's cut. I mean, that's it, right? And yeah, I see Cam talking about, but with Cleveland, I mean, a big thing for me with Cleveland is he didn't even dress in this game in terms of like, like that to me signals. I read into who's playing and who's not. Now, my big thing, and this is something I said on the watch along, this is my absolute big brain, especially it's even more big brain with John Harbaugh and what he said about Ali. Were they playing Ali in the preseason game to trade him? Were they doing it to trade him? I don't think so. I think he's going to make the roster. But again, we're getting crazy here on this Locked On Ravens. We're getting wild, all right? So do they trade Rasheen Ali and keep Miles? I don't know. We're getting nuts. We're getting crazy. Wow, Cam, this might be the craziest of them all. Derrick Henry making the team? I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, breaking news, Lamar Jackson made the Ravens, everybody. I know it's a little bit of a toss-up, but we got a pretty good indication that Lamar is probably going to make the team. What could they get for Ali? I'd say a 5th or a 6th, maybe. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but those are guys. I think, in my opinion, I'm going to take Hummel off, and I'm going to put Keon Martin on. You could also maybe make an argument if they want to keep Okoye over Jenkins. I think that they're going to value the Jenkins and his veteran ability. So I'm not necessarily there on that. I think Emory Jones is your de facto 10th offensive lineman here, at least in my opinion. Like, I know he's going to start the year on IR. Plus, I think that if you don't keep Dellinger and Samek on the roster, you'd be able to get one, if not both of those guys back on the practice squad. I think that is a realistic possibility for them at this point. But I just think at this point, you have to also calculate it. And the Ravens have gotten lucky in the past with guys who have probably they should have gotten claimed on waivers. Probably should have gotten claimed. Like Ardarius should have gotten claimed a couple years ago and he didn't. Like the Ravens got lucky there. I think, to me, does a Jay Higgins make it through waivers? I don't know. Keon Martin, I don't know. Ruben Lyrie definitely wouldn't. He's making the team. If they lose Samek or Dellinger to waivers, I'm okay with that because it means you're keeping someone else. And that's kind of the thing with the Ravens roster and where they are right now is you have so many guys that it's going to feel bad to lose them if they do leave or they get claimed on waivers when you cut them. But again, that's a situation you would much rather be in. I think you feel good enough about your D-line depth and honestly guys that can move inside. I mean, another big brain thing is, do they just keep 4 defensive linemen altogether? Like, do they just cut Jenkins and go with Matabike, Jones, Washington, Peebles, and then say, hey, we can move Tavius Robinson to the inside? Maybe do they cut Ajabo and sign Clowney and say, hey, Clowney can play inside? Like, we know that this is not just your cookie cutter defense. Like, they're not just going to play base a bajillion times a game. They're going to move guys around. They're going to play dime. They're going to play heavy DB packages. Like, they move guys around. Guys play different positions here. At this rate, the Ravens are the standard in terms of how you build rosters. It's not just about the star power, and they certainly have that, but it's about how you build the depth, how you can have your team respond when guys go down. So, yeah. And I see everybody talk about Leary in the chat. Oh, yeah, he's starting over Lamar. No. Devin Leary's not making this team. And honestly, my projection is he does not make the practice squad. I mean, it's the most obvious move in the world, isn't it? Commanders might cut Josh Johnson, or Browns might cut Tyler Huntley. They bring back one of those guys to be their third quarterback. I wouldn't bring Devin Leary back. I wouldn't. And if you've been with me for a while on Locked On Ravens, I've probably said it a bajillion times, even just on the watch-alongs. Leary was not a draftable quarterback, in my opinion. I said it the day he was drafted. It's not that I'm not rooting for him. Obviously, I want everybody on the Ravens to do well. But, when I don't like something, I'm going to say I don't like it. I'm not just going to come on here and praise everybody for no reason. No, Joe Milton was my last draftable quarterback. I didn't think Leary necessarily impressed in college. And you can see, like, there was improvement from week 1, but there wasn't nearly enough for me. I mean, the deep balls hang up in the air for 5 minutes. He sailed a couple throws. He wasn't really asked to do a ton today. Like, I haven't seen enough from Devin Leary to justify him even being on the practice squad. And yep, I know. I see it. Yep. Torres, Tila, Cameron. Yeah, it's all that. And yeah, for Tanya here, look at the talent we pick up and develop here, even for kickers. And the Ravens have a type. Randy Brown's one of the best in the business. One of the best in the business at identifying kicker talent. And so much so that Eric DeCosta's revealed that he just kind of lets Randy Brown and his team do their thing. But he doesn't even really, like, he's involved in the scouting process. But, Eric DeCosta had an insightful conversation about how, Randy Brown was to go out, do his thing, come back to DeCosta, and DeCosta's like, all right, like, cool. Like, that's how much Randy Brown has pull in this, and that's how good of a coach, evaluator Randy Brown actually is. So I love where the Ravens are. Coming up, we'll talk a little bit more about who stays and who goes, and if the Ravens can make any other additions to their roster, or if they just have too much already. And look, if you have too much, that's a good problem to have. So be sure to stay tuned. We got plenty coming up here on this instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens. First, this episode is brought to you by Betterhelp. These days, it feels like there's advice for everything: cold plunges, gratitude journals, screen detoxes. But how do you know what actually works for you? With so much information online about mental health and wellness, it can be overwhelming to figure out what's true and what will actually help. That's where talking to a licensed therapist through BetterHelp can make all the difference. You get real personalized guidance instead of just guessing based on something you saw on social media. And therapy isn't just about navigating major challenges. It's also about building positive coping skills and learning how to set boundaries. And having a trusted professional to talk things through with can help cut through the noise and keep you focused on what matters most. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, serving more than 5 million people. It's easy to fit into your schedule. So click to connect, and you can even switch therapists anytime if you need to. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Moving right along on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still diving into all the Ravens covers. Ravens absolutely bully the Commanders. Wasn't even close. Honestly, felt kind of bad for the Commanders. Not really. I was happy with how the game was going. Again, we got you covered 5 days a week on Locked On Ravens. It's been amazing covering this team. This is going to be my 7th season on my 6th year anniversary of hosting this show, come up just a couple of weeks ago. And the communities we've built up were absolutely unbelievable. Obviously, the audio community, which we started off in, that continues to flourish every day. Video community, our goal is 14,000 subscribers before the season starts. We're about 125-ish away from that goal right now. So tell a friend, tell the family member that we have them covered, just like we have you covered over here on Locked On Ravens. And of course, the watch-alongs, we've done those now for the past 3 preseason games. It's really fun to react to plays live. And the regular season ones, we're about to have a really fun time with those. So if you want to tune into those are available. Game days are always going to have a ton of Ravens content. After this, we're doing the Locked On Ravens Squad show with myself and former Ravens receiver Kadri Ismail and Sam Njoku. So be sure you tap back in here right after this ends. We'll have the squad show probably 15 to 20 minutes after our instant reaction episodes end. And that's the whole season. We're going to have a lot of Ravens content on game days. And we have a lot of Ravens coverage anyway. But who stays, who goes? That's the really important conversation. And actually, I love these live shows because in the chat, topics just come up. And I see people are talking about the quarterback situation and how everybody loves Devin Leary. No, I'm just kidding. Talking about who could potentially fill in the event Devin Leary does not remain on the Ravens. I see people talking about Anthony Richardson. I see people talking about Trey Lance, right? I see the names popping up at least in the chat. And I see Tila asking, who would you choose, Huntley or Anthony Richardson? I mean, if I had a choice, I would choose Richardson. I mean, I think the thing with Richardson that, everybody is talking about is that if he were to get traded, he would probably want to go to a place where he has at least a chance to start at some point, maybe be a backup to a team that's looking for, like, I think Cleveland and Anthony Richardson, if Shedeur wasn't there, that would be perfect. But obviously, Shedeu's going to get a chance there at some point, and I'm really excited to see what he can do in Cleveland. I think that it's that situation though, where it's like a veteran quarterback in Joe Flacco that's not going to start the whole year. So who's going to be it's the young up and coming team. Cleveland, I don't know if I'd call them up and coming, but they're, a team that doesn't necessarily have a bright future this season. So what's to lose there? Honestly, you know what? A team like the Colts could use an Anthony Richardson. Like, honestly, he could. But Richardson also probably wants to go to a place where he wouldn't be the third string quarterback. And I think that if he came to Baltimore, he would be. I mean, that would kind of be it. I think that at this point, the Colts messed up that situation badly. I think if it's all about development, right? We know Lamar, if Lamar went to a different team other than Baltimore that didn't develop him the way and didn't go all in on Lamar like they did, same thing with Josh Allen and Buffalo, we'd probably be talking about two different quarterbacks right now. Right? It's different. The Colts, to me, are more to blame for Anthony Richardson than Anthony Richardson. Now, Richardson hasn't been good, all right? It's not all on the Colts. Richardson has not developed well. Part of that is we knew when he was drafted, he needed development. He needed the team to develop him. And they didn't do it. They said, hey, go start week 1. Here's all the pressure. Go do it. We knew that wasn't what Anthony Richardson needed. Lamar didn't even start for half his rookie season. And Lamar was further along than Richardson was. So I feel like the Ravens are set. Cooper, and I've mentioned this for Cooper Rush, he has a $4 million dead cap hit this year. He's not going anywhere. He's going to be the backup. Leary in the third quarterback spot. And that's where it's like the Huntleys, the Josh Johnsons, those are the types of quarterbacks I'm thinking of for that practice squad spot. That's where it is. And you know what? Flex saying Teddy Bridgewater, I'd be down with that. I think that'd be a really cool story if Teddy were to come to Baltimore. Now, obviously, he's in Tampa doing his thing, but I mean, I'd be more than down with that. So I don't know. Quarterback spot kind of feel not that it's set, but actually, I'm just trying to refresh my social media. I see Shedeur just took a 23-yard sack. So again, it's those types of growing pains that some of these younger quarterbacks or rookies are going to have to go through. But at this point, actually, I'm curious. What was my roster prediction in terms of the actual? All right, so we're going to do quick math. 6, 7, 13, 16, 20. So I have 25, 25, 3. I have it split. I have it 25 offense, 25 defense, and 3 special teamers for the Ravens, which honestly feels about right. It feels about right. I think at that point for the Ravens, with their roster where it is, the balance is going to be there for them either way. And honestly, what makes me feel even better about it is that not everybody they cut is going to be claimed on waivers, right? There is a possibility that multiple Ravens players they cut, if it's a Keon Martin who gets cut, if it's a CJ Okoye, Higgins, some of these guys, I don't think every single guy gets claimed. Now, hopefully, look, we're going to do some knock on wood. I'm a superstitious guy, so I'm not trying to jinx anything here. But, I mean, I think it's possible the Ravens can put together their best practice. And I said this last year about their practice squad, but I think they can put together their best practice squad that they have had in maybe ever. Because think about it. You can get a third quarterback in there. I think Myles Gaskin or Darnell Johnson, that's a really strong group of duo wide receiver there you have. Anthony Miller, Keith Kirkwood, Dayton Wade. Hopefully Dayton's okay. I don't have any updates still, I don't think, on those guys. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I just haven't seen it or it's passed me by. But I think that those 2 guys, 3 guys are going to be really good wide receivers on the practice squad. Maybe Malik Cunningham makes it as a 4th. I don't know. Tight end wise, you can throw a guy like Scotty Washington on there, especially for early in the season when Isaiah Likely, who knows how many games he's going to miss. Obviously, on the defensive side of the ball, I mentioned all the other guys who potentially could get cut. Okoye, Ravenel, Chandler Martin, Higgins, Malik Ham, Keon Martin, and Bo Braid. You have so many guys to where even if you go through, look, the Ravens were the healthiest team in the league last year. It's just a fact. They were extremely healthy. And knock on wood, they were able to repeat that luck. They've been one of the luckiest teams in terms of health the past 2 seasons. Part of that is, I think, some shifts, and we know certain people are not in the building anymore. But, it doesn't always go that way every single season. Now, I'm hoping for a 3rd straight year. We're knocking on wood. We're hoping. But, even if you do have to go through a couple more injuries this year than last year, the depth is so good there. Like, for example, the cornerback room. If Jair goes down or someone goes down, you have Awuzie, you have Tampa, plus Humphrey and Wiggins or whatever duo you want to put in there. They have a lot going for them right now. So just an absolute dominant win over the Commanders, bullying the Commanders. Preseason's over. The next time we see the Ravens, it's going to be when it matters. Real football action. So I love it. We're going to have the watch alongs for the regular season games too. Be sure you tap in for those. And of course, be sure you tap into the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. It's coming up a few minutes after we're done here with the instant reaction. That's all I have for you here on the instant reaction. So be sure you go pop over to the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. It's going to be myself, Sam and Njoku, and former Ravens wide receiver Kadri Ismail. So on the way out, hit the like and the subscribe button in video form, follow along in audio form. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. This was an awesome show. See you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.